time of strength.
Thanks for joining me, folks. What's up? Bill Mack here with another edition of Pro Wrestling Unleashed. Glad you folks could join me for another video. What a good night of Raw that we had. And just in case you have missed the results from watching the show, whether you didn't watch the show or whether you just want a recap of it, I'm glad you clicked right here because I will try to make sure that I get each and every show, whether it's WWE, whether it's Impact Wrestling, whatever it may be. This is your source for it. So thanks for joining me once again for another video here. As we had a really good night of Raw that had happened, possible reformation, and surprise. Who knows what happens until you watch the end, all the way to the end of a wrestling show. So let's just get right into the results, folks, and let's dig right in. The WWE, of course, they started off the night with a moment of silence, to remember those that were lost in the horrific shootings in Las Vegas in earlier morning. 50 people at least died. At least 200 or so more were injured. Just such a travesty that happened. They all come out and all stood in a moment of silence for it. So, nice touch to begin Raw. We had a first matchup with Seth Rollins taking on Braun Strowman. Remember last week, it was his other half of the tag team champions, Dean and Ambrose, that didn't fare too well against Braun. And needless to say, neither does Seth. Now, Seth does have some offense in this matchup, but Braun is just being Braun and being just too much man, too much monster for Seth to be able to handle. He shows his strength against Seth through this whole matchup. Like I said, Seth tried to mount some offense. It really wasn't enough. As we see the ending where Seth hits 2 springboard clotheslines and a blockbuster from the top rope, but then we see Braun basically scoop him up, hit him with that power slam, get the win. And then when he goes back up the ramp, he turns around and comes back. He ends up hitting a second power slam on Rollins. This prompts Dean Ambrose to come out. Dean Ambrose ends up trying to defend his partner, jumps off the top rope, gets caught with a choke slam. Braun picks him up and he hits a power slam on Dean Ambrose. But if that wasn't enough, we see the Bar, Sheamus and Cesaro, which I'm going to start calling them the Bar since that's what they like to be called. The Bar came out there and basically they hit, we see that Cesaro hit the neutralizer on Dean, and we see the bro kick on Seth to show it. So they're still upset. This rivalry for that tag team championship is still going on, leading up until their pay-per-view that'll be coming up soon. So then we see Mickie James in the back, and we see Alicia Fox and Emma kind of laughing at Mickie James, and she says, "What's funny?" And they point to her locker room, say, "Somebody left something there for you." Mickie opens the door, sees some Depends underpants, which, are older for diapers and things, and also a walker. This makes her upset. She knows that it's none other than Alexa Bliss that has done this. She goes to Alexa's dressing room. Nia's standing there. Alexa says she's not up for the challenging Mickie tonight, but Nia is. Then Mickie says she will accept the challenge. So Mickie James will be taking on Nia Jax later on in the matchup. We next see Bray Wyatt, and he is on the screen, and he's talking about, "She wouldn't have done this to me. She wouldn't have done this to me." So I guess he's talking about Sister Abigail. So apparently he's bringing up Sister Abigail yet again. So he goes to commercial. We see next up match, Elias coming, and he's talking trash about Denver, which was funny. He said something like he'd rather drown a mile deep in the ocean than to be in the Mile High City, which I thought was funny, which he's always funny with his promo work. And as he continues singing, Titus O'Neil comes out. I was surprised Titus was wrestling. I hadn't seen Titus wrestle in a while. But, and of course, this is, Elias goes over in this matchup. We see that Samson on the outside shoves Apollo Crews at ringside, and then he hangs Titus up on the top rope, and then he hits the drift away for the pin to get the win. So Titus O'Neil is apparently not as worldwide as we would think. Elias, of course, keeps rolling through the card, and I'm a big Elias fan. I like Elias. I think he does awesome job with his promos, and he's a pretty good wrestler and strong. So good showing for Elias tonight. We come to the matchup: Nia Jax taking on Mickie James. This was a actually better matchup than what I was expecting. I was expecting, of course, Mickie James coming back. She's going to get squashed again. Doesn't happen. They actually allow Mickie James to have a good match with Nia Jax. Nia did not hurt Mickie, which is needless to say a good thing. But Mickie puts on a good display. There's points where you basically have Nia's strength taking on Mickie's perseverance. Mickie doesn't give up, and she actually, like I said, puts on a good match against her. She ends up Mickie hits a tornado DDT onto Nia onto the mat, and Nia looks out. So then Mickie goes for the pin. Alexa comes in, interferes, causing a DQ win for Mickie James. This prompts Mickie James on the outside to slap Alexa Bliss and then hit the mid kick on her. So whether they're basically laying some groundwork to show Mickie, even though she's a former 6-time women's champion and she was back in the older days, the Attitude Era days, like around that time period, that she can still put up, because you don't want to put Alexa over if you're making Mickie look just weak and squashing her every single week. So I felt like this was necessary. Give Mickie some credibility, especially going against Nia Jax. That way you protect Nia as a monster because she doesn't quite lose cleanly, and you also protect Mickie as now you make Mickie seem like she's a credible opponent to potentially give Alexa a good run for the Raw Women's Championship. So good segment there. We see Renee Young try to interview Enzo Amore about what happened last week at the end of Raw. He doesn't say a word. He's speechless, and that's how it ends, which is odd. You don't hardly see Enzo speechless. Up next, we have Mickie James in the back. Kurt Angle's congratulating her on a good match, and he tells her that she's, by her performance and her being a former champion, that he feels like at TLC that he's going to give Mickie James a title shot against Alexa Bliss. So, which is what they were trying to prompt to do to begin with. So, good idea, WWE, to go ahead and make Mickie a viable opponent for Alexa Bliss at TLC. Up next, we have a tag team match, which is something that started off on WWE social media, where the Good Brothers, which I call them the Club, Gallows and Anderson, called Jason Jordan a nerd. Jason Jordan, of course, he and Matt tag team up, and it prompts us to where we are right now with the tag team match. Matt Hardy and Jason Jordan taking on the Club. This was a decent match. Each time, the Good Brothers Club basically put up a good matchup, and they shut down any kind of offense that Hardy and Jason Jordan would get on the roll. They didn't get on the roll too much in this matchup. Each time they tried to go and set up an offense, they basically were shut down. The ending shows where Jason Jordan got reversed into the barricade on the outside by Anderson. Anderson distracts Hardy. Hardy misses in the corner. They set up for the Magic Killer. 1, 2, 3. The Club win a matchup over Hardy and Jason Jordan. So up next, we have The Miz taking on Roman Reigns. Now, this begins, Miz has been inkling since last week about a Shield reunion. Somehow he's been mocking Roman Reigns and mocking the Shield. We see this time that when you're looking at the Miz's theme comes on, he's not coming down the ramp. Instead, he's using the old Shield entrance. Back when the Shield used to come through the crowd when the music would start. So they do this today. So you see him kind of egging on still towards the Shield. So they come down. Roman Reigns comes out, and immediately he goes after Bo Dallas and Curtis Axel. He beats on them. He chases them through the crowd. He goes up through the ramp, top of the ramp, takes a chair, and he just levels both guys repeatedly with the chair. So then he prompts down, he goes to the ring, and I'm thinking, okay, why isn't he getting counted out? Because I heard the bell ring when JoJo went to do the announcing, which I thought was the beginning of it. But apparently, when they come back from commercial, they claimed that the bell had rang to start the match, but then we hear the bell start whenever Miz gets in. So it's then. So WWE sometimes doesn't quite explain things as clearly as they should. But I thought this was a good match, decent match by both guys. You know, Roman started out real hard, then the Miz got the upper hand and early offense. They went back and forth. You know, Miz would go, Roman would fight back. Roman tried to hit the Superman punch. We see Miz kick out of it. Roman acts surprised. That we've seen at one point, Roman Reigns gets hit with the skull crushing finale. Of course, he kicks out of that, so they're kind of even back and forth. So whenever Roman hits the Superman punch, Miz kicks out of it. He sets up in the corner for the spear. But then out of nowhere, the bars show up. They drag Roman out and they start beating on him in outside of the ring. They get him on the inside. You see Cesaro hit the neutralizer on him. You see then Sheamus hit a brogue kick on him. And then you see the Miz and them do that triple power bomb move that, again, the Shield used to do. And they stand over Roman once again, all three men, and do the Shield fist bump. So if he's really antagonizing him, and I think all three, so people are hinting at possibly a Shield reunion due to this happening. Still not quite fully sure, but still, that's what some people are speculating. So then we see Finn Balor come, and Finn Balor cuts a promo on Bray Wyatt. Remember what happened last week? Well, then Bray comes back at the Demon, and Finn Balor, and he tells him, he says, you know, the man makes the Demon. So I want another shot at the Demon. I'm sure she wants to meet him as well. So she, apparently, what we talked about earlier, is Sister Abigail. So will Sister Abigail appear. She's been, ever since Bray and the Wyatt family have been in WWE, we've heard him constantly talk about Sister Abigail, but we've yet to see her. So will she be making her appearance or not? It remains to be seen, but it's good to think that she might actually show up. But you need a dark female figure from in a family or twisted sense of that character, much like you had in Decay when you had Crazy Steve and Abyss, and you had Rosemary. Rosemary made the Decay because of being that female aspect. So maybe having Sister Abigail finally show up with Bray Wyatt is the way to go. So then we have a tag matchup between Sasha Banks and Bayley. This week she's taking on Emma and Alicia Fox. So they're wearing these women tag team matches out. Basic matchup. Sasha does her moves. Bayley does hers. Emma has a shot. Alicia Fox. They all get their turns doing what they can do. Ending comes whenever Alicia Fox goes to reach for a tag. Emma, of course, pulls her hand away, and she ends up leaving Alicia Fox to fend for herself. Bayley ends up hitting the Bayley to belly on her for the win. So, of course, Emma's being Emma. That's the way it works when you got heels. You got a lot of times they refuse to help each other out after being on the same team. So then we come down to the final segment of the night. Of course, like it was the final segment last week, Enzo Amore's in the ring and he's addressing the cruiserweights. He's in the ring and cuts a promo about how he's got this much money. He has more fans in the crowd. He said he's a ratings draw with his skills, and he's got charisma. You know, and he runs down the entire cruiserweight division because they all got up and gathered around the ring, and he insults each and every one of them because he knows that he signed a deal with Kurt Angle that they can't touch him. None of them will get a title shot if they do. And he said that if any of them touch him, they're going to get fired because of the deal. So then Angle comes out and reiterates that sure, nobody of the cruiserweights can challenge or touch you until, that needless to say, newest signing, and lo and behold, Kalisto's music comes, hits, and then Kalisto comes in. He hits a bunch of high spots, which is what Kalisto does, and then he hits up the Salida del Sol on Enzo. So Kalisto is where he should be, where he should have been all along in the cruiserweight division. So he ends up topping. So maybe now we have that feud between Enzo and Kalisto coming up. So be look forward to seeing that. So then when the show ends up, basically we go and we see Roman Reigns backstage, and he's still hurting from the beatdown. And then we see Dean and Seth walk into camera view, and they just look at each other and they nod. So looks like, folks, after all that speculation of the Shield reforming, looks for maybe a one night only thing. Who knows? Probably a one night only thing because Roman's still challenging at the pay per view, and then we know that the Seth and Dean are the tag champions. So, hey, possible Shield reunion next week. Who knows? It remains to be seen. But like I said, folks, sometimes the ending of the show actually is pretty good. So glad to see Enzo wasn't the last thing we had to see on Raw. So hope you folks have enjoyed this video. I'm glad and thrilled to give you the wrestling results, as wrestling is my passion. I love professional wrestling, sports entertainment, and WWE. From whether it's Impact Wrestling, whether it's WWE, I'm just a big fan. So if you do like this video, folks, like I said, drop a like on this video. Follow me on my social links that are in the description. If you have any comments, if you have any questions or anything you want to see, feel free to drop them in that comment, as I do read my comments and whatever. And if you do like this video and you're not subscribed, guess what? Subscribe to my channel. Share this video with other people and pass it along. So, till next time, this is Bill Mack with another edition of Pro Wrestling Unleashed saying, take it easy.